Howdy folks, it is Dr. Lane here again with another Peaks Challenge 2022 training tips video. Now this one's getting filmed about the end of January, so we've only got a month or so to go. I've looked back through all my video histories to see what we've got up on the YouTube channel, and I think one thing that's missing is what to bring on the day. If going to a big event like this is something new to you, then quite often you can get there and go, oh bugger, I've left that at home. So I thought what I'd do is run through, I guess, 3 basic steps. 1, what I pack up and throw in the car, or in my case, my big van, when I drive up there so I don't forget anything. 2 is what I think you'll need when you're there getting ready for the event. And 3 is what you're going to need on the start line and what you should have done to make sure you're ready for that. Everything in front of me is what I'm going to be putting in the van, ready to go. I'm pretty organised these days. I go to a lot of events. I've pretty much just got everything in its own little cases. So what I'm going to start off with is clothes. So this is all my clothes that I will be taking up to Peaks Challenge. Now, right now outside, it's about 30 degrees. It's really hard to pack for an event when it's nice and warm, but you've got to think about being cold. So all I can say is pack all your winter gear as well. What I have is a separate bag, and this bag always just lives in my car. This is my wet weather gear bag. In that wet weather gear bag, I'll run through it a bit more in detail later, but is everything I need in case it's a wet day and I wasn't ready for that wet day. So this gets me out of trouble. In the car, as I said, I've got all my normal clothes. That generally has 3 sets of kit because you're going to ride the day before for a bit of a warm-up when you're up there. I've got my kit I'm planning on wearing on the day, and I've got a backup kit. Might be something a little bit warmer than what my summer jersey and that normally is, and maybe I'm going to go for a ride the next day. So 3 kits essentially covers me for the weekend. Okay, I have some tools. So I have a tool roll. This thing's pretty cool. It rolls out, stays in the car. If I need to fix anything on the bike, I pretty much can with this. Now remember, you've got mechanics up there at Falls Creek. Quite often they're booked out to the hilt. It's crazy. I don't understand how people's bikes aren't working when they get there. Try and book it in, I'd say 1 to 2 weeks before the event to your mechanic, so you can get a chance to ride it afterwards. Mechanics get real busy. Sometimes they forget to do things. You don't want to get out there and go, oh, they didn't change the brake pads out. You want to know that your bike's working on a couple of rides before you even put it in the car to get going. Alright, what else have I got? Nutrition. So all of my nutrition, this is my ride nutrition, what I have on me on the bike. It all lives in a case. It's just all my bars, it's my gels, it's my electrolytes. That always lives in my car because in case I go for a impromptu bike ride, I've always got something with me. Electrics, I always carry a case in the car that has all of my charge cables, all of my adapters. That is my all-important Di2 charger for my bike. You'd be surprised how many times I've lent that out to somebody when they're in desperate need of it before a race. So all the basic stuff, all my charging stuff. I've also got a separate one which has all my main electrics. So I've got my Garmin's. I've always got a backup Garmin in case. I've got my front lights, I've got my rear lights, I've got a million lights. If you forget your light when you're up there, maybe shoot me a message. I have multiples. So basic things like that, that's all in one case that lives in my car. I'll put my Garmin in my helmet. I always put my Garmin in my helmet the night before, fully charged, because in the morning I'm always running around looking for the damn thing. What else have I got? Okay, don't forget the importance. Like bottles. I always bring heaps of bottles. Different size bottles. Big bottles, little bottles, medium-sized bottles. I never know what I'm going to run depending upon how hot the day is, but here are 3 different size bottles, small, medium, and the really, really big one. Depending upon your hydration needs and how hot it is, that will dictate what bottle I put on my bike for the day. What else have I got? Shoes, don't forget your shoes. That's actually probably the most common thing people tend to leave at home is their bike shoes. They're always with me. I actually have a second spare set in my wet weather gear bag that I showed you. That lives in the van. I've got an older set. If it's really wet and I don't want to get my fancy white ones dirty, I tend to wear my other ones as well. Small things, don't forget chamois cream. I always wear chamois cream on a big long ride. I just find it helps with abrasion. And lastly, probably the other thing people forget, your bike helmet. In my bike helmet always lives my pump, always lives my sunglasses. In this case, I've got two options. I have a sunny day set and a set of photochromic lenses. In the morning when you're descending Falls Creek, it's definitely not bright enough to be wearing sunglasses. So for protection's sake, going down the hill and all that wind going in your eyes, sometimes having some clear lenses down the hill is a smart idea. So I've got them. My heart rate strap, that always lives in the helmet. And of course the helmet itself. This one's pretty good for a hot day. It's nice and airy, the wind gets in. I've got an aero one when I race, but usually on a long ride like this, I'll just go with the more ventilated version. Okay, that's what I would throw in my van. Plus, of course, my bike. Don't forget your bike. If you have a spare bike and you have room for it, maybe throw it in. It's not a bad idea. I always tend to pack skimpily, and then I get to an event and I'm like, bugger, I wish I had bought that with me. So there's your bike. Don't forget your bike. If it's on the roof of the car, don't drive under the drive-through. We don't want to break your bike before you get there. Okay, that's about it. Now I'm going to run through a few small things for when you're up at Falls Creek and you need to think about, getting ready for the next morning before the ride itself and what you're going to think about on the start line. Okay, I'm back. I've done a little bit of a reshuffle here so I can get to the stuff that what happens when you get to Falls Creek is you can't actually generally park at your accommodation. There's big car parks down on the main road. So what you get a chance to do is drive up, drop your stuff off to your accommodation, and then you've got to ferry the car back down to the big car park. So having stuff that's easily carryable is very smart. So whether it's a big plastic tubs with your food, whether it's just backpacks, whatever you've got, try and put everything in a bag that you can actually just carry it up to the accommodation and not have to take things individually. That's a good tip, I reckon. Alright, so what I've got here is my clothes bag. In it, as I said before, I've got generally 3 cycling kits. I've got my warm weather gear as well. So I always, wherever I go, I'm a skinny little fella, I always get pretty cold. I've got a big puffer jacket. That thing's with me. At night time it gets cold. If it's a horrible day for the ride, maybe I've worn that as well. I have worn a big orange one of these down Falls and up to Wonga before actually. So I suggest a puffer jacket is always handy. Now, smart choices in clothing. I think I'm going to start with the feet. For starters, I have a few pairs of socks, different socks to choose from. I've got merino socks, always good, whether it's a hot day, cold day. If it's going to be wet, merino socks are really good. Your feet tend to stay a little bit warmer. I've got just a pair of black socks if it's going to be a little bit wet, but I'm not too worried about it. And I've got my white socks. I'm usually a white sock kind of guy, but if it is, the roads are going to be dirty, I don't want to wreck my nice white socks, so I'll wear my black ones. What I also suggest is base layers are super important. So I always carry with me a long sleeve merino top. Probably wouldn't be pulling that out this time of year, but it always comes with me. But what I do on the day is have 2 choices. I've either got my mesh undertop that I wear. I always wear something under my jersey typically, so I'll mesh one, or I'll wear a thinner short sleeve merino one. If it's a little bit colder, even when it warms up, the merino ones are still pretty good. They keep you cool when it's hot, but it keeps you warmer when it's cold, so they're pretty good. So they're always in my bag. I'm a fan. I've always got a couple of lightweight vests or gilets. That's my fluoro one, so naughty cars don't run me over. Now I'm lucky enough, my kit for the day is my fancy Ride Leader jersey. So I've got it's even got my name on it. How cool is that? Stephen. with my Bicycle Network vest, with my Bicycle Network Nicks. That's what all of us ride leaders wear. Now, choosing what to wear when you descend down Falls Creek in the morning is probably the biggest decision of your life, to be honest. What are you going to wear? So what I always say on the start line is it's really cold. So you've got to get there probably half an hour before the actual gun goes, so you can get a good spot in the line and be ready. So that's where the puffer jacket comes in handy. If you've got a loved one with you, you can just rug up, maybe tracksuit pants, maybe a puffer jacket. On the start line, just before the start, 5 minutes or so, you can take it all off, give it to someone you know, they can put it somewhere safe. But as for the things that you're going to wear down Falls Creek until you get to the next climate, which is down the hill and possibly around Harrietville and up to Dinner Plain, you need to be smart with what you wear. So what I normally do is have a few options. When it's really cold descending Falls Creek in the morning, like it often is, what I do and what Bicycle Network provide is a service where if you bring an old, say it's an old polar fleece jumper, woolen jumper, something warm, you can descend Falls Creek in it, take it off at the bottom at Mount Beauty and give it to the salvos, and you won't see it again, so it's not something that you're going to get back. What I normally do, I'm lucky enough, I've got a bunch of old racing team kits, so this is a really thick vest I've picked out. I might take that this year, and I might double arm warmer, so I wear 2 sets of arm warmers. That's handy. The set on the outside are a pair I'm probably going to take off and throw at the bottom of the hill. That keeps me warm. So that's your choice to go down the hill. It's usually something you can take off that you won't see again. If it is something that you're going to take with you the whole way around, this is where I dive into my wet weather bag. If it's a moderate day, where it might be a little bit wet and a little bit cold, I'm always a fan of a Castelli Gabba jacket. Those things are just amazing. I've got matching knee warmers and arm warmers. So if it's a yuck day, fingers crossed it won't be. I haven't worn it at peaks yet, but that's a good choice. What else have I got? This little thing here, this tiny little thing, is a little pack jacket. That can go in my pocket if there may be a chance of rain, but not much. It's tiny, it just goes in my back pocket, it can come with me all day and I wouldn't even know it's there. It weighs absolutely nothing. Wet day choices, I've got a whole bag here of different gloves. So I've got really light long finger gloves, medium long finger gloves, and then I've got these crazy big, pretty much ski gloves for really bad days. I'm hoping I don't need any of those at peaks. It is summer after all pretty much, so we shouldn't need them, but that's what I've got with me. Now, here's my go-to rain jacket. So if it is going to be wet, and I'm not really sure, this is a Shake Dry Gore-Tex jacket. It weighs nothing, it scrunches down into absolutely nothing. It's nice and form-fitting, so when I'm descending, it's not flapping like a parachute. I find that's really good. So a nice, good wet weather jacket. If it looks like there's a chance of rain, I will have this in my pocket 100% for sure. This saved my life. I had a similar one on the other year when it was really wet and we left Dinner Plain and it was so cold and so wet and no one rolled out because they were all looking for garbage bags to actually put on because it was so wet and cold. I had a jacket in my back pocket for safety and that got me around the rest of the course. So that I'm calling is a lifesaver and a necessity. What else? That's just pretty much my wet weather bag. It has a merino buff, so one of these things goes on the neck like that. It's surprisingly good to keep your, essentially all your temperature receptors are in the back of your brainstem there. I always find if I keep my neck warm, my whole body tends to feel a little bit warmer. So I'm a big fan of the buff if it's going to be a cold day. As I said, in my wet weather gear bag, I've also got my spare pair of shoes. They come with me everywhere. Hopefully won't need them. So that's all the bits I've actually got with me. As I said, when you're on the start line, try and wear something that's super warm that you can hand off. And then your secondary cold stuff is going to be, are you going to bring a jacket with you? And what are you going to wear down the hill? And I just went through all of that. Now on that, if it looks like it's going to be fine for the first half of the day and potentially not for the second half of the day, if you're not familiar with it, and this is just my example bag, it's just a Ozpost delivery satchel, you'll get these in your rider packs. You should get, I think, 2 or 3 of them. One of them is for when you're at Falls Creek the day before. You can stuff a rain jacket in it. You can put, you can put some arm warmers, you can put some more food, you can put some sunscreen, whatever you want. That's going to have your race number written on it. You give it to the Bicycle Network crew, and then when you get to Denner Plain, you can actually grab this bag with your number on it and grab out whatever you need. So you don't have to carry it all the way from the start. That's good for anyone who wants to carry their own nutrition. You can have a restock point there at Denner Plain. You'll also, what you can do is put another one of these bags inside this bag, and in that one is a fresh one with your number on it. You can take anything off that you've worn at the start line, put it into that fresh bag, and give it back to them at Denner Plain, and it will make its way back to Falls Creek, and you can pick it up either that night after the ride or the next morning. So if you've got stuff you want to take off because you've realised you've completely overdressed from old Dr. Lane's stupid advice, or he said it was going to be cold, then you've got a backup where you can get rid of it at Denner Plain and ride the rest of it in something a little cooler. So that's a good tip if you haven't done it before. Those valet bags, they're called, are a really good thing. What else? I really think that's it. I think it's a few smaller things of... I'm missing a couple of things here. You need some spares. Make sure you've got spares on your bike. Enough, at least a tube and a pump. As I said, I've always got my pump with me. My spares little packet is always on my saddle behind on the seat post. I don't put stuff in the pockets. It just, 1, it weighs a lot more, and 2, you can't fit all your goodies being your food. On the food, when you're packing, I always bring up my own food. There's not a great massive supermarket up at Falls Creek, so bring what you're going to be eating with you from home. That might be breakfast for the night before. It might be your snacks. I've always just got some muesli, yogurt, a bit of milk, orange juice, that sort of stuff I bring up. My tip for the morning of the event, when we leave super early in the morning, I struggle to try and eat anything, so a big bowl of cereal just doesn't go down right. I tend to have a little packet of the pikelets that you get from the supermarket, maybe put some Nutella on them, and I'll have a couple of Up and Goes, so chocolate Up and Goes. In that, there's a stack of calories and you get a bit of hydration, and it's pretty easy to stomach at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're not used to eating a large amount of food at that time. Other tips for carrying stuff with you on the ride, I always have a mixture of different foods. So I've got, my favourite at the moment is some Kellogg's LCM bars. I love them. They're just so easy to eat. The little marshmallowy thing just melts in your mouth. And they're super light. Like, you can have 10 of them in your pocket and you don't weigh an extra kilo. They don't weigh much. I've always got... Winners usually help us out at Peak Challenge. So I've always got some chews. I've got some Cliff Bars, which are the nut-filled ones. I've got a little caffeine chewing gum I carry around. I've got my electrolyte tabs. I'll put a couple of those into a Ziploc bag and keep them in my pocket. So if I get to, generally it's Angler's Rest when I re-top up, and I'm starting to get pretty tired, I'll have a couple of electrolyte tabs in a bin there to get me home to try and avoid that cramping going up the back of Falls. I think that's it, folks. I've been through everything that I wanted to. We're at the point in time now where hopefully everyone's feeling pretty fit. Things can go really out of routine through the Christmas, New Year period. You're off work. Hopefully you've been able to ride more, but maybe you've been travelling and you haven't. If that's the case, don't stress. Just get back on your bike. Pick where the program's up to now if you're following my programs, and just continue on with it. Other than that, we've probably got a couple of videos to go. In about a month's time, a bit under a month, I've got the Peaks Challenge training camp up at Falls Creek. What I'm going to do there is wander around with the camera and get a bit of footage about just asking questions to the ride leaders who are on this camp, asking questions of maybe some first-time participants on the camp, and just talk, essentially just have some discussions and try and answer some questions for you. Other than that, folks, this video is probably dragging on, so I'm going to cut it short there. I hope everyone's doing well and getting their rides in. And until next time, ride safe, and I'll see you on the road.